fear of rejection. How many have this feeling at different times, either in your workplace or in your social life? It was like, we don't know if they're going to accept what we say. We don't know if we're going to get accepted for our ideas. There might be a time when we don't get that job that we applied for. It was like, we just got rejected for that. It was like, it might be a time when we are on a meeting and somebody doesn't turn up, and it was like, are they rejecting what I'm doing, or are they just not wanting to meet up with me? It might be that we had a coffee date, a coffee meeting with someone, and they just didn't turn up and they didn't send us any messages or anything. It was like, well, what's happening? And so it's really easy for us to jump into those feelings of rejection, because what happens is initially our brain goes, they're not here. Or maybe they're caught in traffic, and we get them a little sort of off, and then we go, they're still not here and they haven't messaged me, and then we go, I'll text them. They haven't messaged me back. And then the time ticks on, and then it gets to that stage where we go, maybe they just don't want to meet up with me. Or maybe they'll just actually change their mind. Maybe they don't want to work with me in a collaboration. Maybe they actually just don't want me to work in their workplace. Whatever it is, we create this story in our mind, and we create these thoughts that we keep saying to ourselves. And then those thoughts send off this chemical reaction in our bodies, and we begin to feel uneasy, we begin to feel a bit stressy, and we begin to feel rejected, and disappointed, and fearful, and all of these things come up. And if we're not careful, what happens is these go into a pattern, and we become that identity. We look for those unconsciously, we look for those things that are going to cause us to feel rejected, because that's the way that we've got into a pattern. Now, there's nothing wrong with us. We don't have to fix anything. However, if you want to live your best life, if you want to be your amazing version of yourself without this fear, there is a way. I'm going to take you through a 3-step process to get through the fear of rejection. Okay, so come with me. So the first step is we must notice. We must notice the pattern, because without awareness, we cannot change anything. If we're not aware that we're jumping into those thoughts of like, maybe they just don't want to meet up with me, or maybe they don't like my ideas, or oh my gosh, I'm such a terrible person because they haven't come back to my email yet and it's been 12 minutes or 2 days or 2 weeks, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And then we need to notice what those thoughts are that are happening in our heads. We get to notice that self-talk. We get to notice that pattern that we have built up over time, over the past. Now, because it's a pattern and we're right here, right now, and you've noticed, we don't have to have that pattern going forward. You can absolutely change it. So the second step is to shift something in some way. Okay, so one of the ways to do that is to change your physiology. Absolutely. So if you're sitting down and you're having all these negative thoughts, then you go into that stage of like, okay, I'm going to take a big breath. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to go for a walk, because it's like, okay, they said they didn't want to take me into the interview. I'm going to go for a walk, because the interpretation of that is that they had somebody else that they preferred. Nothing to do with me. That the story that I often take into that is like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I didn't make the cut. They're rejecting me. And we go down into that spiral pattern again. And then creates more and more fear in our lives. And we become, as I said before, the identity of a person who keeps feeling rejected. Just a pattern. Okay, so first step, notice the pattern. Second step, shift your physiology in that moment. And then within that moment of shifting your physiology, begin stacking your goodies. It was like, I can do this really well, and I've got these amazing friends, and oh my gosh, look at that beautiful tree out there that I'm just walking past. And we shift our inner state as well as our physical state. So we're shifting our inner state, we're shifting our focus, just that little bit, that little 2mm shift. We're shifting our focus off of those negative spirals, off of that fear of being rejected, off of that story that we've created in our heads. And then the third step is that we get to choose a new story and live it. Live it, be it, do it, and embrace it. We get to choose that new story. So what is that new story that you have? Remember what you can control. You can control your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. You can't control that somebody's stuck in traffic. You can't control that somebody had something emergency come up. You can't control that somebody changed their mind. You can't control that somebody chose somebody else. You can't control that somebody else decided that there was another priority. That is a them problem. That is their stuff, not my stuff. I get to choose how I show up. I get to choose my response to what happens in that moment. And so do you. And this is an incredible skill that we coach and train people in leadership to develop even more. Those emails when people don't get back to you and it was like, but I want to collaborate with them and I know that I've got the expertise and I'm amazing at what I do and they're still not getting back to me. And we make up this story that goes on and on in our heads. They're just rejecting me. They don't want to work with me. They think I'm terrible. They go blah, blah, blah. And we go down the blah, blah lane. And so those three things can shift you through the fear of rejection, because then you shift the pattern, you break the pattern, and you create a different way forward. So those 3 steps again, notice the pattern. It's just a pattern. It's just something that has been created over time, and you can change it. We can rewire those pathways and we can shift them. First, the next step 2, shift your physiology, shift your state really. So it's physiology first, change your physiology, move, breathe, do something different with your body, and then shift your inner state. Feel the goodness, feel the things that you're great at. Identify those things you're grateful for. And within those moments, you have shifted your physiology, you've shifted your state out of the pattern and the spiral. And then the 3rd step is choose a different story to go forward. It's like, beyond my control. I get to choose, I'm going to focus on this. I get to choose to give something to somebody. I get to choose to have a wonderful conversation with somebody else. I get to choose to use the time that was going to be for that meeting to do a training right now. Here we go. And I get to choose what I invest that time in. I can have space for myself. I can have a cup of tea or coffee. I can go for a walk. I can message a friend. I get to choose. I get to choose that story. So remember that fear of rejection begins just up here. It's just the story, the pattern that we've told ourselves over and over again, and that creates all those emotions and those feelings and that way forward that we notice and we recognize. So when you recognize it, you notice it, you shift your physiology, you shift your state on the inside as well as your body physiology, then you get to choose an empowering and a different story to go forward to create the rest of your day. Remember, one tiny tweak can change your life. And this one right here will set you up for a powerful way forward.